It's Bitcoin. Hey, folks! Thanks for tuning into the BAMF podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty, here with a panel of thousands to talk about comics, kids, and other cool stuff. I hope. Let me scratch my itch real fast. I've been watching this show from Gendy Kartovsky, who did Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, and the Clone Wars cartoon that was good. And
How dare you leave out Samurai Jack?
Well, that's just assumed, right? But
yeah,
season 1, part 2 is back of Primal, which is basically Alley Oop meets Conan, with sort of a Sergio Leone kind of aesthetic to it.
Yeah, he always does cinema homages in a way that's not necessarily overt, but really brilliant.
Yeah, I've been a big fan.
And reminds me of the beast from Over the Garden Wall with the horns.
Yeah, I can see that. And that's probably enough. It keeps going, and there's lots more killing. But it's been a great show.
What's that on?
In the U.S., that's on Adult Swim, which is Late Night Cartoon Network. I don't have cable myself, so I'm watching on iTunes. And I did an hour of cardio today watching the first 2 episodes. So,
that's very cool.
Yeah.
Hand-drawn animation, always the best.
HBO Max has a deal with Adult Swim where you can stream stuff there as well.
Oh.
I was going to say, I think I saw it on the ads on HBO Max.
Cool.
So, hey, I should introduce everybody real fast. So I'm not a horrible host. Looking very sleepy. Right next to me is Walt Rebelliard. How you doing, Walt?
I'm here for the snacks.
You're here for the snacks. All I have is tomatoes.
Yeah, I'll take it. I like tomatoes.
Or as I would say, tomatoes. And next to Walt is Christopher McLaughlin from Ghost Show Press. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good. I actually just never left from the podcast we were doing yesterday. I had a list of Venture Brothers episodes I found problematic, and I was like halfway through season 5, and then I realized everybody had left. So we're talking about comics. Okay, I got to find my other set of notes, but I should be good to go.
All right, cool. Directly beneath me, who's rocking the Johnny Cash look, pure black, is Aid Smith from across the pond. How you doing, Aid?
I'm good. Yeah, I just realised I have no Hulk thingy. Where's that gone? That's not good. Hulk smash.
You could just turn on your camera and show us your face.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Well,
actually, that might be why. One sec. Yay!
Hey, there
he's
is.
back.
There we go. And next to Aid is Jacob Blackman, noted RPG artist. How you doing, Jacob?
Hello. Doing well.
Hey, sweet. And last but not least, Paul, noted RPG designer of Union City Heroes. How you doing, Paul?
Oh, we're all great over here in Union City.
That's
glad
cool.
to be back.
So you're in Jersey?
Yeah, we are. We are in the great state of New Jersey, one of the original 13, and one that really receives an inordinate amount of hate for as great as it is.
No, my dad's family's from South Jersey, so I have warm feelings about the Garden State.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's down by the Pine Barrens, Long Beach, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Come on down and visit. But we were just discussing before we got going. The comic shop that is now closest to me since I moved last year has been having terrible trouble getting DC Comics with their new distributorship, and I'm kind of bummed out because I feel like I'm behind the curve for this conversation.
Well, I mean, we can touch on 3 Jokers, which you said you have read, and that comic just got a really savage review on the AV Club just this week. Their review called it close to parody.
Ooh, I think it's brilliant. I think it's fantastic. I wish the core Batman book was like this. I really do. It's so good.
Awesome. What do you like about it, Aid? Because I haven't. I read like some of the first issue, but again, I'm way behind. So
if nothing else, it feels like it has a purpose. They have a story in mind. They're not filling issues. We're not doing a Joker War where it's going for 17,000 issues and the Joker's back again. He's taken over Gotham once again, and I don't know. It just feels like it. we're straying into kind of that Dark Knight Returns kind of Watchmen-y kind of idea that this is a self-contained story. This is what I want to do, and they stuck with it. I mean, Killing Joke obviously is the biggest reference that is probably to make to it.
The cover is an obvious aesthetic riff on Killing Joke, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The lettering, the layout, everything.
The interesting thing about it is with 2 issues in, they haven't actually yet gave anything away of why there are 3 Jokers. There's just 3 Jokers.
There's 3 Jokers. Okay.
Yeah, they have different personalities. They have different ways of approaching what they are attempting to do, which again is seemingly up in the air at the moment. But they've got like references back to some early Batman villains, some kind of characters that literally show up for like 1 issue in the like 1940s, and then they get beaten down, and then they come back again. And they all seem to be taken from a specific kind of time period during the Batman run. But why they're right, we don't know.
Yeah, which is interesting. It kind of plays in the same concept, but in a totally different way of Grant Morrison's Joker having this super sanity where he keeps recreating himself, right? Every day he's he picks up the pieces and puts them together, and they might be totally different. He might go from like the clown who buys a helicopter with his face on it to, the guy who's savagely beating a kid with a crowbar.
Yeah, because it doesn't even really reveal if either any of these 3 are technically the one that's currently in the Batman books, because their appearances are different, the way they do stuff is different. Obviously, we get references to Killing Joke, we get references to other stuff as well.
Well, the end of issue 1. I mean, after okay, spoilers. Get the fuck out if you don't want to know what happens in issue 1. All right, Jason Todd kills a Joker during an interrogation.
So it seems.
And it's either end of issue 1 or beginning of issue 2. They're like, we'll start the factory up and get a guy. We're going to make another Joker. I mean, if that's, I don't know if it's canon or not, but if that's how they operate, well, then Jokers are kind of like the Phantom, right? I mean, there's always more Jokers coming from somewhere. When, one dies, we make some more. So, could be the original Joker isn't even still around.
Again, the interesting thing is that they don't seem to have gone the cosmic route, which everyone assumed it was like timeliney stuff, because obviously when the first appearance of this storyline came along with Batman sitting in a Morbius chair and asking them one question and saying, who is the Joker? Oh no, there's 3 Jokers. Crap, okay. So they haven't gone like, oh my god, Dr. Manhattan's rewrote DC Universe history and there's 3 Jokers and 3 different timelines. They don't seem to have gone that way. It does seem to be very, very grounded in kind of like just street level stuff. Just there happens to be 3 Jokers.
Yeah, it's that's certainly an interesting take on it, and like this kind of the idea of this industrialized Joker. There must always be a Joker, and that explains why every time he gets dropped off a building or whatever, he shows back up. But yeah, we'll see how this plays in with the ultimately with their continuity for however long that lasts.
I think we got a good 6 months of DC Comics left, so who knows?
Yeah.
Well, you have to keep in mind it's a DC Black title, which means it's effectively not canon. It's an Elseworlds.
Oh, okay, all right, that's fair.
Like, kind of, yeah. It's one of those titles where they can reference it if they want to. Yes.
Well, that's what the Killing Joke was originally supposed to be, right? It was real, like, meh, is it canon? Meh, sure, maybe. And over time, just because of how good it is and how poignant a story it is, it kind of just everybody kind of agreed, like, yeah, that's what happened.
But
we all read that.
Black Label is kind of in the air, because originally that was what Black Label was intended to be. Black Label was kind of like, hey, we're kind of like the new Vertigo. We're going to do these stories. We're going to be slightly more adult stories. They're going to be the core DC characters we've seen before, but slightly different. And then it kind of slowly devolved in, well, now we've got 3 Jokers with Black Label. Does it count? Because that was announced in a Justice League issue. So it's like, does this, and that kind of, and even like the Superman origin issue, I didn't read that, but I don't know if that is the current origin of Superman, or it was just another origin of Superman. It just seems, crazy. But I think Black Label's died in its arse now, anyways, with all the DC cuts. So I don't think we're going to see much more of that anyway. So,
did someone just take a very deep sigh when
yes,
Abe was talking about the mess of DC continuity?
I did, and also for I think my big sigh was for the other Superman origin story. Like, oh, thank goodness, I had no idea. What? That sounds really relevant. I'm glad somebody's finally taking a crack at that.
Hey, Aid, I owe you a small apology.
What was that?
Well, I'm a very cynical man as I get older, and you've been telling me for years how good Justice League Dark was.
What, the animated or the series?
The series.
Wow. Yeah.
And I just haven't been listening to you because I just figured, well, it's going to be some reboot shit, and it's DC's magic characters, so it'll last like that long and get canceled. So why do I care? So I didn't bother. And then I saw a review of Justice League Dark, and most of issue 5 from 2018. Most of this episode is a wake or a funeral for the old Nightmaster who sacrifices himself, I think, in one of the Dark Metal events.
In the Dark Metal book, yeah.
Yeah, they don't really touch on that. Most of it is just what you see right here. Detective Chimp, just mourning his friend and drinking his way into a stupor at the funeral. And it's just really well written. I was honestly surprised it was as good as it is.
Well, it's good that they're picking up the baton from Shadow Pact, because in my opinion that was one of the worst injustices of the New 52, was the wiping away of that, which I thought was one of the best books they were doing at the time. That they were kind of like, gone.
Yeah, I'm probably the only other guy reading that book who I was like, what the fuck are you writing Shadow Pact? It's the only thing I like right now. But
right.
Yeah. So yeah, they're passing, and towards the end of it, it's a superhero book. I won't spoil it, but they have to go fight some monsters, and Detective Chimp winds up fighting the Blue Devil, who's in Barbarian mode. And man, doesn't he look good in Barbarian mode? Check him out.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah. So if you get a chance, I really dug that. And Aid, I'm sorry I didn't believe you all those years ago. You told me that was a good book.
Yeah. So. It was pretty cool. It was not a bad run. The worst thing about it was they changed when in the relaunch books, they changed the writer so quick that all of his characters fell out because they had Black Orchid in it, which I absolutely love, and all that kind of stuff, which is a real shame. So, yeah.
So Chris, you've been quiet. What are your thoughts about all this stuff at DC?
I don't. It's a sad subject because I've given a lot of time and a lot of money, and have actually had a professional relationship with the company twice removed a couple of times. So but it feels like it's a friend is on their deathbed, and it really anytime you're drawing comparisons to bankruptcy era Marvel, it's just a really an astonishingly depressing thing. And I forget which specific month it was. It was right after they fired everybody at corporate, and I think it's something like one of the following months. DC was publishing 17 comics, and that's if you count stuff like Scooby-Doo. And I'm not hating on Scooby-Doo. I'm just saying, that doesn't leave a whole lot of room for anything else.
I think that was August. They had those. Looking at the Sci-Fi Wire article, mid-August, they had big layoffs right after the move to California.
Yeah,
yes. Some of those haven't took yet either. I think they don't take till December, January next year. So we're still in a kind of a vague era where they don't really know what they are doing yet, or we don't know what they're doing yet.
I think we do. I just think we're not in denial about it. I think the same idiocy that prevailed at bankruptcy Marvel is there now. They're thinking that will be an IP farm, and we might get 2 or 3 digital only books, and at least 3 of them will be about Batman.
It's not denial, Chris. It's not. It's hope, Chris. It's the last vestiges of hope coming down. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah,
I think the people running the company now, their vision is going to have to fail and fail hard before things change, because there is a fair point to be made about the amount of time and effort that you put into comics versus the financial reward. I myself have never quite gotten my head around the, well, it's profitable, just not profitable enough kind of thinking. God, I'm having flashbacks down to back to Wizards of the Coast 20 years ago that Wizards we could always count on Wizards to cancel the most interesting thing they were publishing because it quote unquote wasn't profitable enough.
Well,
I think that's kind of where we are with DC. And all right, here you go. All right, I'll talk about a current comic here just to justify my existence on the panel. The one thing I'm reading now that really jumps out to me. I'd like to think I would enjoy this even if there weren't like a dwindling number of superhero titles being published. I was reading the last batch of Dark Knight's death metal related comics. I'm not up to I'm not up to the current batch yet, but I saw a preview of one, and it's basically where they have yet another round of evil Batmen show up. They're sort of doing a riff off the old Rainbow Batmen. So it's like a group of Batmen, all of whom have like a different colored ring, and they're led by evil toddler Batman. And they're fighting the original evil Batman, Owlman of the Crime Syndicate from Earth 3. And spoiler alert on like a week old comic, but it ends with him essentially killing toddler Batman. And as he's killing toddler Batman, he's telling him, "You're a silly idea for a Batman, and no one will remember you."
No.
So there's this part of me that kind of wonders, and again, I could be grievously wrong and frequently am, and usually am on this podcast. But a part of me wonders is this story not like one of the great meta commentaries of all? Aren't they doing it like the greatest example of biting the hand that feeds you ever? That they're saying to DC, not everything needs to be a permutation of Batman because you're pushing it past the point of ridiculousness.
I think they're almost attempting to try their Batman version of Into the Spider-Verse. Just chuck every single permutation of Batman we can at the wall,
and that was my original take on it. But the fact that now in the text itself, they're mocking this notion, and it kind of makes me wonder if that's not a little jab at this company getting ready to publish 4 books, 3 of which will mandatorily be about Batman. If maybe they're saying that like this big, wonderful, crazy creative universe that you've created doesn't need to be all about Batman. And I don't know, maybe it's just where I'm feeling the loss of like the Hawkman title, which was really good and profitable, just not enough to please a company with that kind of overhead. But anyway, but I'm definitely to the end of death metal just to see if I'm right about that.
Let's say I mentioned before, 28 years I've been doing collecting Batman stuff, and Detective 1027 and Batman 100. I'm still considering if they're going to be the last Batman titles I pick up for a while, because I am sick to death of it. I'm sick to death of Harley Quinn facing off against everything. I'm sick to death of Punchline. Oh my god, Punchline should give the best character ever. First appearance is worth now for a gazillion quid. Does anyone know what she's going to do? No one's actually read a line she's either said yet, but it's going to be fantastic. You go, it's horseshit. How can you possibly tell these characters are going to be good and memorable before they've even come out? Give me a couple of characters where they go back and go, well, do you remember that character that like Gambit or whatever? Oh, Gambit's becoming popular. Oh, well, no. Oh, well, I luckily have the first appearance of Gambit because back then he wasn't sold as the next big thing. He was just another X-Man.
Cable and Deadpool and Harley Quinn were kind of the last era of that, where it's like, oh man, nobody expected this, seemingly one-off or bizarre character to become this prominent place in the canon. And so now, unfortunately, because of this speculative market, and this is really what killed or wounded comics back in the 90s, right? Was this anticipation that every first appearance was a collector's item, you need to get it, and ultimately, at least the wrong kind of people buying comics, that market doesn't last, and then these companies make these big investments that fall through because people are buying speculatively, which is the wrong way to collect.
Well, apparently Marvel are doing this as well. Apparently the Eternals comic that got pushed back because of the movie, I still don't know if it's 42 or 52 different covers. Something like that. I swear it's something like that. It's absolutely ludicrous.
I am currently sharing on your screen the best panel of Batman published this year. Written by Mac Fraction, published in Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal, which was just canceled last month.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Olsen never lasts.
I think, that's true. I think we say the worst thing I think for DC at the moment is I every time I'm on the podcast, anyone I talk to, I always big up the Marvel Epic collections because I think they're absolutely fantastic. They're good price, they're decent size, the paper's nice, you get a load of stuff. I mean, literally, my entire run of Amazing Spider-Man, I now containing 4 little books. That's it. That's all I had back then in the 80s, and I've now got me 4 books, and there's like another 17 books to go for it. DC are just basically saying we're pushing all our graphic novels back. We're not cancel. We're not going to publish some of them, and I think they are being really attentive at what they don't know what they're doing. They're more worried about the young adult stuff going into Scholastic and into bookstores than they are actually servicing people that would like to see Brave and the Bold or the Silver Age stuff. I'm desperate for a more Swamp Thing from the original runs up to Alan Moore stuff. I've got the Bronze Age book. I want the next one. When's that coming out? You know.
Well, if I could just jump in for a second here, Kiki. Three quick points. Okay. First of all, not to play devil's advocate, but I guess I am. But I can. There is one very good argument to be made for prioritizing the young adult stuff. It makes a lot more money than the comics.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Second thing is, I don't know if you've seen the end of Joker War. And I'm not saying this to trash your larger point, but before we pile on the punchline hate, if you've read the end of Joker War, that character has taken a really interesting twist. I don't want to root for anybody that hasn't read the end of Joker War, but it's taken a savage little natural born killer's turn of things. And it's something kind of new for the Bat guys. So I'm kind of interested to see where that goes. I mean, I'm not saying anything good about speculators or anything like that, but Punchline is kind of deserving the attention, I think, there. Okay?
But the other thing is he was also created Clown Hunter and the Henchmaster, whatever it's called. It's like, what the hell are you doing? These are just random characters you're creating. These are going to be fantastic. There's a Clown Hunter, Batman 100.
They're brand new characters. I'm willing to hang around and see what happens to them. I'm not going to hate a guy for coming up with a new idea, especially since I don't know where it's going. My favorite era of more detective probably than Batman as such, but it would be when they used to get a creative team in, they'd do a 3-issue story, it'd solve a problem, there'd be a new creative team, they'd do another 3-issue story. These overarching epics that just seem to plow on forever and ever and ever. I mean, like Detective had a Joker War tie-in where Killer Croc had a group of 6 guys that he'd managed to rescue and they lived in the sewers, and they all got a little speech bubble with their introduction, their names, and all rounded up, and they're probably never seen again. And it's just like, what a waste of an issue. It's just utter shit. It's just sick of it. I'm literally on the knife's edge of whether to just can Batman.
Well, hey, switching topics. Walt has been particularly silent.
Yes.
Walt, what are your thoughts on comics these days?
Anybody who's watched the show knows I love indie comics. I love the innovation. I love that people are doing some really wild things. It's not just, hey, guess what? We're gonna beat the Batman horse again. And I really what's that?
Just to ask Chris, is there a Batman horse in Dark Knight Metal? Just out of interest.
Well, I tell you what, if it shows up, I will add that to the column of my theory that they're just openly mocking the idea that everything in DC has to revolve around Batman.
There you go. Sorry, Walt.
No, it's all good. But I mean, that's the point. I mean, we've what is it that some of our guests have said before? When any sufficiently great idea has reached its saturation point, it then opens itself up for satire. I think that a lot of comics are getting into that with the big publishers because they've reached that saturation point on stories that they're capable of telling. I mean, first the Joker is this brilliantly kind of conceptualized idea of anarchy, where 1 minute he's a psychopath and 1 minute he's kind of just funny, and then all of a sudden there's 90 Jokers. He can warp reality or whatever is going on. I don't know. I stopped following after some of the stuff just got a little too weird for me. But I mean, once again, as long as you're not hurting anybody, is there really wrong, bad fun? So if you're enjoying all the Joker stuff and all the DC stuff, you should really get out there and support that publisher so that it doesn't go the way that we're placing bets on behind the scenes. But yeah, indie comics are just so much fun. There's a lot of good stuff going on. In the early 2000s, somebody did a riff on Lone Wolf and Cub, which is a fantastic comic from Japan. There's so many movies have been made based off of it. So many, the current iteration of Star Wars with the Mandalorian is
totally.
Is totally a riff off Lone Wolf and Cub, and not like a stolen idea, but more like a love letter, which is just fantastic. So
Star Wars was the Hidden Fortress, was it originally or something?
Yep,
That's
yep.
correct. Yeah,
So we're going back to that. That's all.
Yeah, hell yeah, and it's that kind of fun that really sparks the imagination of comics these days, and to have that being pushed by indie creators is fantastic. So I really enjoy a friend of the podcast, Nick Garber, is doing something called 2100 Samurai. And it's a dystopian version of a samurai story where one village has kind of survived the apocalypse of the world around it and has gone back to like samurai times to protect itself, which is kind of like
That sounds like Samurai Jack. Sorry.
Yeah, a little bit, right? And Lone Wolf 2100, which
I
was
loved your Lone Wolf 2100.
oh my god, was that so
awesome.
good? I mean, just
Too short.
Just the twist on Ito and who he was and what he was fantastic, and you can get it on Amazon and stuff like that. So, but yeah, the indie publishers are really something I enjoy. They have one for friend of the podcast, Jason Tondro. We have what's it called? LaFay. What if Jessica Jones was a bounty hunting Fey sorceress, and it's the story of Morgan Le Fay in the modern world, kind of Harry Dresden style.
Oh,
I
cool.
keep wanting to support the Kickstarter for LaFay, but they always run their Kickstarters when I am poor.
Yeah, and I mean the artwork is great. The thing I liked about LaFay that caught me more than the story, because we've seen Harry Dresden Files stories before, and people who are doing homages to that because they love the story and love what Jim Butcher's doing. So the thing I really liked about it was, number one, she wasn't portrayed as like, I was evil in the past and now I'm trying to be good. She's still who she is, and she's that anti-hero, but she stays true to the job. If she's going to get hired for this job, she's going to do it, and so forth and so on. The other thing that I liked was she wasn't drawn as an anorexic, broken style, like what was the guy with the pouches? Leafield, right?
God.
A waistline that was as thin as a finger, and with her back like in scorpion pose. She has real proportions, and the artist did a really great job of having her move in realistic ways, and I think that fits with her character because it does a really great job of showing, she appears as just a regular person, even though she's got this fantastic backstory, and the fact that leprechaun is hysterical.
Wasn't there an RPG publisher who did a game a few years ago about Arthurian characters reincarnated in the modern day?
I might have heard something about it. It was fainting gerbil game or something like that. There we go, fainting goat.
Fainting llama. I thought it was
fainting llama.
Narcoleptic llama, something like that.
But yeah, that's the thing I really like about indie comics, because back in the day, this would have come out of something like Vertigo or whatever.
Yeah.
But like now, people are really trying to push the boundaries of seeing what they can do on their own. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, just a few years ago, someone said that Kickstarter, if you counted it as a publisher, would be somewhere behind DC and Marvel, and now I think they might, just in terms of number of books put out a year,
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would think so.
I mean, I know in the last year I've supported LaFay. I've supported Rumble Kings, which is another really great comic. Especially if you like Primal, you'd like Rumble Kings.
Oh, okay.
I've supported. It's going to break me to say this online. The Transdimensional Intergalactic Taxi Service, which is
Oh yeah, I'm talking
shortened
about
to TITS, and that's how they do that all the time. It just breaks my heart. But they got I've supported Stellar Galaxy, which is an anthology comic. I mean, just there's so much good content on there, especially Kickstarter. When somebody you follow on Kickstarter says, "Hey, I just supported this book," and you're like, "Let me check out this book. Yeah, I might have to throw some loot this way," And I think one of the things that Kickstarter does, it's a great and Indiegogo, but also because a lot of comics creators seem to be drifting to that as well. It really is a great barometer for what people will be willing to throw their money at.
Friend of the podcast and creator of Kyle Rayner, Ron Mars, funded a lot of his stuff on Kickstarter. Of course, he's now back. 2 weeks ago, he's on the podcast talking up the Endless Winter event. So it's even the big names are going there. Jacob, you've been very quiet, sir. What are your thoughts on comics these days?
Just waiting my turn as usual. I read a variety of comics, not too many currently. On the popular comics front, I have been reading Batman: The Adventures Continue, written by Paul Dini. He's been writing stories that have been continuing the DC animated universe created by him and Bruce Timm that dominated the airwaves for the better part of a decade. And was pretty much hailed and continues to be hailed as one of the best DC animated series ever, between Batman, Superman Adventures, Justice League Unlimited, and Batman Beyond. So he's continuing to do that. He is introducing with these stories. He's introducing characters that haven't been introduced into the continuity before. Like he's bringing in Jason Todd, he's bringing in Azrael, he's bringing in Deathstroke. So getting to see him add those really popular characters to the series that had never touched on them before has been interesting in seeing what he's doing with them.
I am glad you reminded me this existed, because I picked up like issues 1 through 3 and then I just kind of forgot about it. So I should.
Most recent one to come out is 5, so you're really not that far behind.
Yeah.
Plus they're $1 each, so you can't beat it.
And again, the thing about the Batman animated series is that's exactly what I want from a mainstream Batman book. I want a story that's self-contained. It's interesting. Stuff happens. There might be some threads that feed through for other issues, but we're not doing 6,000-7,000 issues with all the Joker. He's got such cool. The worst thing about Batman is same as Spider-Man. They've got good rogues galleries, and the idea you keep using the same 2 or 3 villains all the while, it's like, oh no, stop it. Just give me some stuff going on with other people. There must be other villains doing stuff.
Exactly. The Joker is one of those characters. So this is something I've discussed with. I'm not sure I've ever discussed it here, but it's something that we discussed heavily in a DC game that my roommates and I played in for a couple of years. We were playing what we called the DC Origins game. I was playing Superman. My roommate Mark was playing Batman, and my other roommate Tom was playing Wonder Woman. And we were starting with the origins of the characters, the formation of the Justice League, and when Joker came onto the scene, we were over time discussing what we were going to do to him.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much okay. Joker shows up, fine. He's killed a couple of people, great. He goes into the system, shows up, goes to Arkham, all right. He's gotten out, fine. Bruce Wayne donates a whole bunch of money to Arkham Asylum and upgrades their security. Oh look, he's gotten out. He's killed a whole bunch of people. Well, guess what? This isn't a game where we have to worry about using Joker because he's an IP we really enjoy. He's not going back to Arkham Asylum. He's going to a freaking heavy security prison because Arkham Asylum has proved it can't contain him. Oh, look, Joker has gotten out again. This proves that regular security, even the highest security that the United States can afford, can't contain this psycho murderer. Guess what? Phantom Zone. Bye-bye, Joker.
I was about to say Phantom Zone because I watched Batman the Lego Movie a fair amount, and that was one of the main plot points in there. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of the old Batman animated series style, too. I think I would like a whole line of books that cover this, but I don't know if anyone other than us would be reading it. So,
yeah,
I don't know about that. I feel like that the Batman animated series has a lot of love. I think the voice acting, the casting was terrific. The soundtrack, like each villain has their own mini theme, and I think there's a lot about it that's really iconic, and to this day, really resonates as a kind of synthesis of what we want out of a Batman story.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. As for independent titles, I recently got my digital copy of Sooner Force, which I supported on Kickstarter recently. There was a Oklahoma-based superhero series produced by people here in Oklahoma, and features a great collection of characters, and they're hoping that the physical copies will be out soon. So if you have an opportunity to check that out, I highly recommend it. It's great art, it's a good story, and Sooner Force, yay.
Apropos of indie comics, I know this is a larger one, and it's going to become larger now based on the property, but the first trailer for Amazon's Invincible just came out last week, and man, that was absolutely one of my favorite comics coming out. That was in the era where I was managing a comic book shop, and I have I actually have 4 younger brothers, but 2 of whom are comic fans. And the weeks that Invincible came out, it was always like, oh, can I read Invincible? No, I'm reading it first, and then you. And then, like, it was the reading order. Invincible is the one that got passed down the line because nobody could wait for what was going to happen.
Good book. Very good.
Yeah.
You guys mind if I play that trailer? It's about a minute long.
Oh, I would love to see that trailer again.
You're going to get us booted off Twitch now, right?
Yeah,
how's that going to work? Who owns Twitch?
All those Twitch bucks.
Amazon's.
Twitch only cares if you swear. So the only way to get booted off Twitch is if you swear.
I mean, the good thing about it is the art style looks very, very similar to the comic. And
and I like their cast.
You haven't skimped on the blood by the looks of it either, so it does seem to be pretty cool.
I do. Were you nervous? A little.
But yeah, I haven't read I haven't caught up with Invincible in a long time. But when I was reading it, it was by far one of the favorite series I was reading at the time. I keep wanting to go back to it, and I keep forgetting to buy it when I'm in the comic store.
Right.
I am so excited to see this coming out. I hope it stays as true to the comic as it can, while also, doing its own thing if it does better.
If it needs to. Yeah.
I literally collection. So I haven't picked up the 12th one. I don't know why. I just never got around to it. But every single other one is literally like, oh, it's like Invincible Christmas. It's a new hardcover out. I can't wait. So yes, it reads like 13 issues or whatever it is. Yeah, I love it. It's just such a good series. So
I knew a guy who was making a pitch to Kirkman about 8 years ago to do the Invincible RPG.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that would have been great.
Would have been, but yeah. And it's Chris can probably speak to this to more depth than I can. I know, Walt, you got some experience with these conversations too, but it seems like sometimes these licensed games, it's a great idea and people are passionate about it, and then it hits market, and like the Venn diagram, people who want to role play and people who love the property, maybe that overlap isn't as big as you wish it were. I've heard of some really big name properties not going to name any names now because it's not that kind of podcast, that they weren't really a golden goose for the publisher, and they might have been more like an albatross, to stick with my ornithological reference. Damn, look at me. You use words like ornithological, and then your dog has to.
I think the moment I realized that I'd been in the RPG industry a long time is I actually stayed in it long enough to see somebody get a major license and not go out of business because of it. Yeah, I mean I mean, the inherent thing about the RPG business is it's made up of people that are all about living their dreams. I mean, you can't have an interest in RPGs and not spend a lot of time dreaming you were somebody else, maybe even wishing you were somebody else. And so it's kind of like this like it's like a moth to a bulb. It just draws in people that just naturally are prone to have everything overwhelm not only their business sense but their good sense entirely. That's why I've always had a great deal of respect for people who can make good games and still focus on the fact that you still need things like business plans and things like that. So yeah, I've always tried to balance, my desire to fly to England, get the Blake 7 license, come back to America and lose my house because nobody over here knows what the fuck Blake 7 is. Oh, excuse me, we can't curse here. Okay. what the frack Blake 7 is. Yeah.
Chris, we literally got shut out of YouTube yesterday. Okay. You get kicked off Twitch.
What the cuss.
What the cuss.
Yeah.
No, literally yesterday we're doing a Venture Brothers show, and I'm showing clips from Venture Brothers on YouTube, which were, it was the Adult Swim channel. They put them out there for promotion, and I don't have the sound running. We're just playing them and talking about them, and I get an email from YouTube saying, "Hey, you're violating our community standards. We're yanking this down." And then I appeal it, and the guy in India who reviews those things, 11 o'clock last night, writes me back, says, "Nope, you're really violating community standards." And they can't tell me how, but I don't know. Anyway, so no one say fuck.
But another great example of what we're talking about, Venture Brothers is the awesome. You're not going to make $2 million if you turn that into a role-playing game because you're talking about a niche inside a niche. If you didn't lose your house in the process, that would be a win.
But Chris, what if we roll a 20?
That's right. I would still absolutely love to do a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy role-playing game. I would still be out there going, right, I've got to do it at some point in time. I really want to do it, but it's just crazy. But I think you're right.
I
got a towel, +1 to everything.
Hey,
my heart is completely with you, but my head is saying that, as far as licensing that property, it probably peaked with the old 5 1/4 inch computer game from 30 years ago, where you're typing in commands.
Yeah.
Yeah, that there you go. That I think may have been peak merchandising. That
shame though. Shame.
I have this theory, and I've said it like a million times, so I guess it's more of a set piece at this point. That really the future of licensed RPGs is 30 to 40 page zine style promotional pamphlets, probably in PDF, that the studios put out as part of the advertising campaign.
We'll see. We're very interested to see with the Hellboy RPG coming, which is just completed the Kickstarter last week, and obviously the G.I. Joe Transformers, My Little Pony, Power Rangers RPGs coming from Hasbro. If they take off, we could see a shitload more from even 5th edition based stuff. But there could be a fair few because they're going to hoping to get that money. But we'll see. I mean, they must think there's something there because Wizards, like Chris said, Wizards would dump something if it doesn't make enough money. They must be thinking it's going to happen somewhere along the line.
The best a good RPG license or anything is almost like a freak of nature accident, because to me, like for many years, the gold standard of like successful licenses is the deal that I can't remember if they're still Amarillo Press or what these days, but the people that made the licensing deal for Starfleet Battles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they licensed Star Trek at a time when you can get it. I mean, that they were practically. I mean, Paramount was practically paying you to haul the corpse off their property, and whoever drafted that contract, I mean, Paramount, wanted to get out of that deal so badly. But even as they were rolling into Next Generation and stuff, there you go. Whatever deal the Starfleet Battles people negotiated, they were able to keep putting out their stuff. And I remember there's even a role playing version of that. So yeah, there you go. I mean, just grabbing that license when it was at its absolute peak and in its absolute pit, and then writing out like an extremely favorable contract to you. My gosh, you just never see that. The property is either dead, nobody wants it, or it's so hot that they're only going to get it on terms that are going to screw over the tabletop company.
Which again is why Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say to boldly go where no RPG designer will ever go again.
Yeah, this is why Modiphius is such a unique thing. Modiphius have got Star Trek, Conan, got John Carter Mars. It's like that's 3 licensed RPGs, and and they're all ticking along fairly nicely as far as I'm aware. So it's just like that's such a rarity. The only last people that do that was Fantasy Flight Games had the Star Wars RPG, and then they went under because they just decided to ditch it, and we're not doing any more RPG stuff. So,
But they're still using the license.
Yes, exactly. That's it. That's what
they just transitioned to board game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some people on this panel are too modest to tell you Modiphius' real secret. They hire damn talented writers like Aid Smith.
They hired me to write small paragraphs in the core rule book. That's as much as they got. So yes, but yeah, it's just the thing about that was they followed one after the other. It wasn't even hardly like much of a break between. Like, we got Conan, we got John Carter, It's very interesting. So.
And on that happy note, I'm getting Paige to go upstairs and help with the Millennium Falcon Lego. So
that sounds more fun than anything we're doing here.
Yeah, it's over 2,000 pieces, Paul. You don't understand.
Did Paul just burn the podcast before it was finished?
That is me elevating the Millennium Falcon Lego, which is still one of my big dreams. And I'm like, how many $100s to waste how many hours? I just can't right now. That's irresponsible in every way.
I was gonna say, man, at least have the decency to wait till one of us unplugs before you start trashing this.
So I should mention that I just dropped $84 on Masters of the Universe Origins figures.
Oh, the little Diddy ones, or the new re-releases.
The new re-releases.
Yeah, I consider
Those are nice.
I consider there was one podcast or thing on YouTube basically said, okay, if you want Hasbro to survive, then buy these figures. You need to show the willing to buy the figures. It's like I've got them all lined up in my Amazon, ready to wish list, ready to go, and they all disappeared overnight. So it's like, okay, well, there you go then.
Man, I feel really bad for Hasbro sometimes. I cry at night thinking about how bad it is to be Hasbro and how close they must be to just not being able to make it if I don't spend a little more money on their shit.
Yeah.
Are you laughing, Chris? Is that funny to you?
No, you took me back to my favorite deleted scene from the Steve Martin classic, The Jerk, after Nabin Johnson gets rich and people are literally coming to his door to ask him for money. And there's a guy that actually just walks up to him and asks him for money because he doesn't have enough money to repair the seats on his private plane to fly his friends to the Super Bowl.
Right.
and he just acts so pathetic in his pitch. Nabin cuts him a check.
Well, hey guys, it's been fun.
Yeah, this is great.
To all of our viewers and listeners out there, we made it all the way through a YouTube podcast without getting shut down. So,
woohoo!
One day without a community violation, Facebook Live. And
we should have that as a ticker tape along the bottom of the actual podcast. I think.
All right. From
One day without a community violation.
Yeah.
There you go. From now on, we start every podcast that it has been this many days since we were kicked off YouTube.
Yeah.
Indeed. It's kind of a bummer because I sort of want to I have this irrational urge to do a series of Venture Brother cartoon, analysis episodes and then break down the characters in different game systems. And I'm probably the only person who wants to see that podcast. So I probably won't do it. Yeah.
I'm in. I love Venture Brothers.
Yeah. All right. Anybody had closing thoughts before we wrap it up? Walt, are you still with us, sir? All right, cool. Abe, closing thoughts.
Just as I want to be equal in showing my displeasure with DC, also showing my displeasure with Marvel. Apparently, there is a big culling coming. Apparently, possibly in December for Disney. There may be many a Marvel lossage in that culling. So we'll see what happens at the end of the year. But could be a lot of books going if they are not doing well.
Yeah, it's
Not good. It's not good, but it's coming, I think.
Hey, we're in a serious recession. There's a lot of people out of work, and people cut back on expenses like comic books. Which, God, I love them, but sometimes I look at my monthly bill and I'm like, why am I spending $5 for 22 pages? What's wrong with me?
I had the biggest monthly spend of comics this month. It was twice the amount I normally spend this month, and it was like, my God, what's happened? It's because it all came back after the pandemic. They all shot all the issues back out again. So it was. I had 4 or 5 months of like, hey, this is good. I'm only spending so much. It's like, no, my God, no anymore. So yeah.
Yep. Jacob, closing thoughts. You all good? Said your piece.
If you enjoy what we do here at the BAMF Podcast, please consider supporting the BAMF Podcast via Patreon. Only $1 a month will get you more antics like this.
Stick it to the man by supporting the BAMF Podcast. We're too real for YouTube.
Yeah, I really need to get the seats in my private plane redone so I can fly my friends to the Super Bowl. Please back to
You
Patreon.
have seats in your plane?
I just have pedals.
Got to hope for a tailwind. Paul, closing thoughts. You all good?
Yeah, I'll just say, I live in hope. I managed a comic shop through recessions and boom times, and I'll say that, while it's some people do have to cut back on things like comic books, oftentimes the little expenses are the ones that people are least willing to cut because they are just a couple bucks for a lot of joy. And I think comics are something that we all take a lot of joy from, and that we should work right now, whether they're indie or big titles or both, to make sure that they don't go away.
I agree.
I would also agree. Chris, closing thoughts. Are you all good, sir?
There was a moment in the late ` when there was a very, very, very uncertain times in the tabletop RPG industry. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be just appropriate that they finally let me into the industry and then it dies? But then D&D 3.0 hit and the open gaming license. And it seemed like just a very short time from when I was having this conversation. Will this all survive? Will it last? I had one of the supreme honors of my life, and that was I got to talk to legendary DC editor Julius Schwartz and tell him, sir, I'm writing a book currently, and it's going to be dedicated to you. And he handed me his business card with his home phone number on it. He said keep in touch with me about this. And it wound up being Time of Crisis, the very first Mutants and Masterminds published adventure. And it got me to thinking that, as dead as the RPG industry seemed then, it must have been what comics looked like to Julius Schwartz in 1956 when he finally decided, hey, let's give this superhero thing one more try. And my hope is that as dark as things look for DC now, and maybe Marvel if these layoff stories are true, comics I don't think will ever be gone forever. I think before we know it, somebody, another Julie Schwartz will come along and say, hey, let's give this thing one more try, because these little things never go away. And the thing I always like to keep in mind is, hey, somebody out there is still playing mahjong. Yeah, they never truly die. So as dark as things look for comics, I think that they it's too good of an idea to go away.
Thousands of old men in Asia agree with you. But I gotta say, kids are reading comics. My kid's got a full run of Dogman from Dave Pilkey upstairs, and he buys the new one every Scholastic book fair his elementary school has, and I read them to him at bedtime, and they're funny as shit. And awesome. He knows how to entertain 7-year-olds, and that's not something that DC and Marvel are trying to do these days. So. But anyway, not to. Speaking of entertaining 7-year-olds, I need to go upstairs and do some of that myself. So, everybody, thanks for coming out. Always a pleasure talking to you guys. To all our viewers and listeners, and YouTube, thanks for not shutting us down this time. We will catch you next time on the BAMF Podcast.